Hey everyone, welcome back. So, here's something that caught a lot of attention this week. President Trump has once again suggested the idea of sending out $2,000 stimulus checks, this time saying the money would come directly from tariffs.
How much are you thinking for that, sir?
Well, we're thinking maybe $1,000 to $2,000.
Now, that's a pretty striking claim because tariffs have already brought in hundreds of billions of dollars this year. And if you think about it, Trump is framing this as a kind of dividend to the people. That's not a term you usually hear in politics. It's more like something you'd hear from a company talking about shareholders. So the big question is, can this really happen? And what would it mean for you and your wallet? Stick around, because today we're going to break it all down and look at both sides of this idea. Before we go further, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If a $2,000 check really landed in your account, what would be the first thing you'd use it for? Groceries, bills, savings? Let me know. Now, let's get into the heart of it. This isn't the first time Trump has floated something like this. Earlier in the year, he talked about sharing savings from government cuts with the public, and now he's come back to the idea with tariff money. He's painting it as a win-win. Part of the money would go to paying down the national debt, and part would be distributed to people. On paper, it almost sounds like a loyalty program, right? The country collects money from tariffs, and then citizens, as shareholders in a sense, get a rebate. But here's where it gets tricky. Tariffs are taxes on imports, which means companies bringing goods into the US pay those tariffs. The question is, who really ends up paying in the end? A lot of economists say it usually falls back on consumers because those companies often raise their prices to cover the cost. So, if you're paying more at the store for food or clothes because of tariffs, and then you get a check back from the government, is it really extra money in your pocket? Or is it just giving back what you've already lost in higher prices? This is exactly why people are split on it. Some folks see the checks as a boost, pointing out that during the last round of stimulus, markets went up, households got breathing room, and it sparked spending. Others think it's more smoke and mirrors, because the pain of higher prices might outweigh the benefit of a one-time payment. And you know what's interesting? Some people even told me that with grocery prices so high, the check might not even last a month. Another thing to keep in mind is that this proposal isn't law yet. For it to move forward, Congress would have to pass legislation that allows tariff revenues to be redirected into direct checks. Right now, there's no official program in place. Senator Josh Hawley actually introduced a bill that would give smaller checks, around $600 per person, using tariffs, but that's barely moved. Many lawmakers argue those funds should go to reducing debt instead of being handed out. So, even though Trump is talking about $2,000 checks, the path to making that happen is complicated. And also, the timing is important. The US is experiencing a government shutdown, which makes these kinds of promises even more urgent sounding. Families are worried about rising costs. Federal workers are worried about pay. And in that environment, the idea of extra cash in hand sounds really appealing. But whether it's realistic is another matter entirely. What's more, tariffs themselves can have big ripple effects. They're meant to protect US industries, but they can also spark inflation if used too aggressively. Some experts have even warned about stagflation. That's when prices keep going up but growth slows down. That's the last thing anyone wants, because it squeezes everyone at once. So while Trump's plan sounds generous, critics argue it could make the economic picture worse over the long term. Now let's step back for a second, because this isn't new in US history. 100 years ago, tariffs actually funded much of the federal budget. Back then, before income taxes became the main source of revenue, tariffs were a normal part of government income. Supporters of today's tariffs point to that era as proof that it can work. But here's the thing. The economy back then was very different. It was mostly steel, railroads, and factories. Today, everything is global. Supply chains stretch across countries, and every tariff ends up being like a hidden tax on consumers. That's why many economists believe trying to bring back tariffs as a major funding source just doesn't fit our world now. And yet, the appeal of a $2,000 check is undeniable. For a lot of households, that's rent, that's car payments, or it's just catching up on bills. People remember what the earlier stimulus payments felt like, especially during the pandemic. And even if this one comes with some trade-offs, for for families who are struggling, it's immediate help. That's why you see such a strong emotional reaction, both positive and negative, when Trump brings it up. So then, what does all of this mean for you? Well, first, it's important to know that as of now, nothing has been signed into law. No checks are coming tomorrow. If Congress ever did approve something like this, there would likely be income limits, phase-outs, and specific eligibility rules. It wouldn't necessarily be a blanket payment to everyone. Second, even if checks were approved, there's a question of timing. Lawmakers move slowly, and getting this through both chambers would be a fight. On top of that, even though the administration is framing this as a dividend and not a bailout, the economic impact could play out differently for everyone. If you're a household that mostly buys American-made goods, you might not feel tariff costs as much, and the check could be a net benefit. If you rely on a lot of imports, you might feel like you're just getting refunded for higher prices you already paid. That's the gray area. And speaking of which, another piece that hasn't gotten much attention is the debt side of the equation. Trump has said part of the tariff revenue would go toward paying down debt. The U.S. debt is at more than $38 trillion right now, and interest costs alone are ballooning. Some experts argue that using tariffs to send out checks instead of paying down debt is like putting off a credit card bill just to buy yourself a new TV. Sure, it feels good in the short term, but the bigger problem doesn't go away. And next, let's talk about the political angle. Some lawmakers see this as brilliant politics. You can say, we're not raising taxes, we're not adding debt, we're giving back to the people. It's a strong message in a campaign season. But opponents call it political theater because they know the hurdles to actually making it happen are high. And when voters are hurting, promises of relief, even if they never come to pass, can still build support. Now, here's something I want you to think about. Even if these checks never happen, the fact that they're being talked about tells us something. It shows how powerful the idea of direct relief has become in American politics. Whether it's stimulus checks, rebates, or tax credits, people are looking for ways the government can help them manage rising costs. And that pressure isn't going away. So yeah, right now, the $2,000 check idea is more of a proposal than a reality. But it's part of a bigger story about how leaders are trying to address inflation, debt, and fairness in the economy. The debates we're seeing today about who pays tariffs, who benefits, and just pausing for a moment to share something important with you. We've partnered with Chapter, a service we feel confident recommending for clear, honest Medicare help. They'll connect you with a licensed advisor, compare every Medicare plan in your area, and help you save money. Most people save around $1,100 a year. It's free, and their care advocate team is there to support you even after you're signed up. Call 615-639-1937 or visit askchapter.org/money using the link in the comments below. Let's keep going. And what fairness looks like are going to shape policies well beyond this one idea. That's where I'll leave it today. If you've been following along, thank you for being here. And don't forget, I'd love to hear in the comments. If a check like this did become real, what would it mean for you? Would it actually help? Or do you think the higher prices cancel it out? Let's talk about it below. And of course, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next update, because this story is far from over.